Hey, welcome to our online conference. Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Is the voice edible?
Yeah,
Audible, sorry.
yeah, it's audible, it's clear.
Yeah, okay, good, good. I have a cat running around in the house, so you might hear the cat noise.
No problem, no issue. So,
Good.
dear viewers, this is Miss Purabi Bose. She is a researcher. She has done a lot of work. She has presented many documents. Sorry, not many, but yeah, commendable documentary on palm cultivation and many more. Um, I will just let the do Miss to do her introduction, as I feel like I will not do justice doing that. Uh, I think the screen is all yours, Miss. You can now actually talk.
Thank you so much for inviting me in this conference, and it's a topic that is close to my heart. So I'm really proud to hear last week's three panelists, and I suggest all those who have missed it should watch it on. It's available online. I not very good with Instagram, so it's my first time. So please apologize with if I make any sorts of error in presenting. So just to briefly introduce myself, I am Purabi Bose. My work has been mainly in forest and indigenous people's rights, and it has started in India. My work, and then slowly I covered a large part of Southeast Asia, where I was working with research centers in Indonesia, and to some extent in East Africa, and recently in Latin America, Colombia, Mexico, and Ecuador. So, but then one thing remains constant, and that is the struggle of indigenous people across globe. It is something that we can all come together and talk the same language, even though our language per se might be different. But then the issue remains the same, the struggle remains the same. So, as you mentioned about my documentary film, I'll just introduce about that. In 2016, after working in research institute as an academic practitioner and doing all sorts of diverse think tank based institutions, I decided to come back to do something that will be more informative for the indigenous people and through filmmaking, and that's how my journey began in filmmaking with the support of FAO, and my trip to Mizoram was thanks to FAO's support travel grant that covered me to do a film, a short film on oil palm plantation, particularly looking at forest, family farms, and the indigenous people in Mizoram. We know that there is in Mizoram a new policy that has come up, and that is new land use policy known as NLUP. So the work, kind of the film, reflects on that policy, talks with different stakeholders, and primarily tries to understand from different stakeholders' perspectives, right from the agricultural department who is implementing this policy, to the people who are actually introducing oil palm plantations in their farm, and to the people who have resisted against this oil palm and still continues to do the traditional jhum cultivation. So I'll come back to it in a bit later. But to begin with, today is the United Nations Day, and it's a day that should remind us that despite all this chaotic scenario that we have with COVID and with conflict around the globe, and then we have hunger, poverty, particularly environmental pollutions that we see due to the degradation of the forest or deforestation, and the climate emergency, which is right now happening in UK, discussion is going on. So this one thing that United Nations is talking about is the solidarity of working together and to cope with the stress as in collaborative way. And one way of doing is to ensure the human rights of people. And this is where it's very important that we look from human rights lens, which means securing and upholding the rights and dignity of the people, especially the most disadvantaged community, which is indigenous people. I mean, they are not disadvantaged from their background, culture, but then the way political situation has evolved has made them disadvantaged, and girls and women, and to make it more inclusive society. So this is very significant that today we are also talking about something that is on the implications of oil palm in Mizoram. To just get into this subject, I would like to talk about the background. It's when I went to Mizoram in 2016, I visited a palm oil plantation in Kolasip, which is regarded as the so I don't need to introduce and do those initial things, or do I?
Yeah. Just from just where you have you have come to the topic of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from this today's presentation, I think for the next 15 minutes, I'll try to reflect on the role of new land use policy in Mizoram, the changing land use patterns of shifting cultivation or jhum versus new oil palm plantations, and finally how indigenous communities, particularly women, are impacted with these new introduced plantations. So this is how I'll make a presentation in the order. But if there are any comments, if you want to stop me in midway and have any clarification or question, please feel free to do so. But I just don't know how this technicalities part, so you just have to interrupt me in between. And I understand everybody can hear me properly. I don't have to speak loudly or no. Okay. Okay, perfect. So let me begin with the fact that why this entire hype around oil palm plantation. It's particularly, we all know that it's one of the cheapest oil. Cheapest oil, primarily not from a consumption point of view of the individual per se, but for the companies. Because if you are in a profit-making company, you want to have an oil that is absolutely cheap for you, so that your profit margin is very high, and that's what matters in a business. So from a business point of view, oil palm is the gold of any business, and primarily it is for all businesses. Oil palm is used for each and every item that even we as a very conscious citizens, we are using. So for example, if we buy a packaged food of potato chips, it is fried in oil palm. Or if we buy a toothpaste or shoe polish, cake, chocolates, toiletries such as shampoo, everything that is that we use have oil palm. And then there is an extreme conscious society who can afford, and then they buy products which are labeled as oil palm free. And that's again expensive. Like as we see that, we have been eating, indigenous communities have been eating organic food, which is reasonable, cheap. But the minute it gets into the supermarket, it has a higher value. So then there is a difference in the way how economics function. And likewise, the same thing for oil palm plantation, that it's one of the cheapest products. So if we keep that into our mind, then we know how and why government of any country is trying to grab this and wants to promote, because it's a high revenue cash crop. So how does a new land use policy in Mizoram particularly, and I think what is very important is the mainstream India needs to understand background of Mizoram very well before they say that, oh, oil palm will help Mizoram communities and will change the entire dynamics of India's position. But there are many challenges that people are not fully aware about, and one of them is this entire concept about jhum cultivation. It is being, from a very beginning, Western scholars have regarded jhum or shifting cultivation as something very bad for forest, bad for our environment, and it's something that is unsustainable. This is changing rapidly, primarily because there are lots of studies that are coming up. There is a lot of consciousness, and then over the years, people have found that actually it is a very sustainable way of farming, and the way people have been doing it for a long time has to be understood from people's perspective and not from an outsider's perspective. So that is one thing that requires to be understood perfectly. Particularly, we talk about the different types of landscape, and in Mizoram, the landscape is very suitable for jhum cultivation, and that requires to be understood. Also, the political point of view, Mizoram has, from the rest of India, it holds a very separate legal dimension, enhancing its own autonomy and power. So that gives them a more autonomy at Mizoram level to decide what policy they want. So therefore, the push from central government towards edible oil plantation requires to be understood from a different political perspective, again, to see how can one, the democratic aspect of Mizoram is maintained. It's also the fact that when you talk about autonomy of Mizoram, it means that the customary laws or customary procedures for administration of civil and any other systems are being recognized in some way. Maybe not directly, but then it's still recognized, and that is something that one needs to also keep in mind when new ideas are being promoted, because it should not just remove all the traditional dimensions. So I'm not going to get into the policies of each of these aspects because everyone would know it. But then most important aspect here, the reason why we need to understand the background or history of it is primarily because the Agriculture Department of Mizoram is promoting oil palm plantation. Now, this is where the challenge comes in, because how does the Agriculture Department promotes it to the farmers? It creates an awareness campaign, and because Agriculture Department has that authority, has that power to share certain facts and to share certain helpful techniques for the farmers to be empowered, it automatically means that oil palm plantation has been regarded as something which is integral part of agriculture in Mizoram, and that's how the fact that the department's website also says that jhum cultivation is kind of degrading and increases flood in the state, and so the kind of narrative that one uses. So then when we talk about creating awareness, they are already creating awareness about how oil palm plantation is beneficial compared to jhum. But then there is another aspect why, from my field work that I found out, why farmers are getting are adapting to this new. It's not just from the agricultural department, but also fact from this new land use policy, which promotes the fact that if you have used your jhum land and you want to have a tenure right, then this is the easiest way, because you put a plantation and after 10 years you get a patta, you get a kind of record for your land. And this is a complete shift from how Mizoram's tradition of common land use and collective land use have been going on for generations. So the younger generation that I saw are more keen to have this legal aspects of land rights, because through oil palm they are sure that they will get this piece of land, which otherwise it's a bit uncertain when they are doing this collective administration of land, which has been for generation in the communities. So I would just draw the conclusion here, the key recommendations for implementing the NLUP, how it should be changed is basically to ensure that the traditional land use is being maintained, so that the communities who have been practicing Jhum and have been maintaining the forest for a long run continues to do that in a sustainable way, rather than changing the entire collective rights of the communities. That would change the dynamic again of the community, because when you are individualistic society, you do not think of a collective forest rights, you do not think of collective commons rights, you are thinking more of how much I can benefit from my own land, and more from an economic perspective. So that's the reason why the cultural dimension has to be understood more when we are talking about economics aspects. And the reason why I did a comparative study with Lai is primarily because from there I understood the language of Lai is rapidly losing from the community. With the introduction of new land use change, such cultural loss will be even more higher, because we want to mainstream everything so that we can manage people very easily. When you have all these kind of new land use changes, and you want to have the same land use change in everywhere, then you want to have a language also that helps the communities to speak in the same way that we all speak, and that's scary, because then you lose indigenous language, and once you lose the language, you lose the culture. So there is all these implications with regard to how indigenous communities require to continue with their own tradition of what they have been doing with their traditional collective way of managing the land. So the second part of what I would like to talk right now is about the gender aspect. If we still have time, please stop me.
No, please do continue. We still have time.
Okay. So the second aspect is about how the communities or how the new generations are viewing land use, because not everybody is unhappy with it. People are happy with the fact that oil palm has brought a lot of change in their economic situation, which the rice cultivation did not, because there was instability, because there was risk of the or there was a lot of hard work. Let me put it this way. So. In many farms, farm holders, mostly the small holders, but then not necessarily 1 hectare, but more than 1 hectare people. So I'm not sure completely how you define the small holders. For me, that is not a small holder, because they are a little bit high upper than the small holders who can afford to invest into this oil palm plantation, because there is a need for investment. And then they say that we compare with our parents and their economic situation. They didn't have all the facilities that we can afford to buy. And that comparison is dangerous in long run. It might be very easy that, I can buy a car, I can buy a TV, I can buy a fancy clothes, but then is that a sustainable, or the risk that they are taking is something that probably they don't foresee. What we have seen in different parts of the world, where in Indonesia or in Malaysia, where communities have suffered a lot in terms of losing out in a long run. And when you have this small focus on your own land, you lose out this bigger land of forest which is around you, and then you lose out the access to those property which traditionally you have been having access to. So that's another thing that one sees a disconnection between the need to have oil palm plantation. but at the same time, as I said, there are some people who are happy because they don't have to manage. According to one person, that earlier the forest was very difficult. There was so much of biodiversity in the forest that we don't know how to manage it. Now it's very simple. We have lines of trees. We go there. We put all the chemicals, the fertilizers that is required, and then it's easy to manage. But the damage with regard to the fertilizers and how it seeps into the water and how it goes into the water, it's again something that is not thought through by this communities or the group of people who promote Jhum, because for them it's more immediate need, and that's something again sees a what I would say disconnection between the generation before and the current generation are adopting to it, to this oil palm. So having said that, coming to my third point, and that is how all this impacts the community who have already implementing the oil palm plantation. And one of them, one of the challenges is which none of these communities who have planted oil palm in their farm had realized that accessibility to the road. So when they have, because I said Mizoram is a landscape which is different, it has a terrain which is more suitable for Jhum. And when you do oil palm plantation, they didn't realize that one cluster of this oil palm is so heavy that to pull it down or pull it to the road, it would take a lot more energy for them and a lot more time if they don't have road. So the farms which are off-road, where you can't really have access to road, they are unable to sell those fruits, and now it is rotting there. So then the pressure is on the women, because it's the hard work that they have put in. They have lost already the access to the other family farm kitchen garden, which the communities used to have, which women would spend a lot more time in doing this collective kitchen garden, which would feed their family. Now they're spending more time in doing artisanal oil palm by pounding those oil palm fruits and squeezing, then boiling it in the firewood, which is like a lot of smoke in a small hut or wherever they are doing it. And it's a toll on women's health, because they have to not just physically but also the smoke, so internally and emotionally, because if you walk in a forest and you do Jhum, you are seeing a lot of birds, you are seeing nature, you are seeing water, you are enjoying the smell of fresh air, and now you are locked up in a small room roasting those thrashed oil palms. First you waste a lot of physical energy, and then you are smoking those, and you don't interact with the nature anymore. You are cut off from the nature, and this cut off from the nature has hurt a lot of women, which again the economist would not understand, because it's something that you can't measure, right? You can't measure with money. You can't say that I enjoy walking in a good forest and it has a value of so much money. You can't estimate that. And this is where the challenge I often find in our society is that you always want to associate with finance. And because you're associating oil palm as a rich source of income, you lose out on the other aspects. So this women, coming back to the women, they are squeezing this oil palm, which the machine would have done it in like maybe 15 minutes. So they spend almost 1 week to squeeze this much of oil, and then they are selling it on the roadside. So basically their entire life has now been revolving around oil palm for no reason of their own choice. If it was their own choice, I could have understood. And it's something that is pushed into them in a way that they would have avoided. It's a new introduced crop, and now they are selling it because women are smart. They have to continue their livelihood. So then they have to come up with something that why this oil palm is important. So they sell it, saying that it's good for your face, it's good for massage, and then people customers do buy oil palm from them, which is good because otherwise all the efforts and energy that has been spent in getting those small bottles of oil would have been, maybe they don't get enough, but at least they get something out of it. And what worries me is that I don't know how in COVID, during this COVID pandemic lockdown, what these women were doing when there were no people moving around, because normally they would sit on this road and then sell it to the mostly travelers, this oil. So basically, the challenge is that first you cut off women from the forest food that they have been growing and they have been foraging, and put them in a place, and then in the name of economic benefit, they are losing out completely. So I suppose this brings to the conclusion, I would say, unless you want me to add something more. But then I would like to hear more from audience, like what their thoughts are, and then they can challenge me, or and whatever discussions we would like to have around it. I'll be happy to hear.
Yeah, dear viewers, please, if you have anything, drop in the comment section. I actually have a question, not a question, but just a discussion part. It's the same problem that we will be having in Manipur, because even in Manipur, where rice cultivation is done, if when this the story of economy, the women running economy, this will really give an impact when once oil palm cultivation comes. So, and also the government has been talking about replacing poppy cultivation in Manipur with palm oil cultivation, which is quite eye-opening for us to address the issue, because the two things, there is one is poppy, which is considered to be one of the most dangerous drug source, giving something like an excuse to put that to keep the, I mean, to bring an end to that poppy cultivation and start palm cultivation. I mean, the degree might be different, the negative impact might be different, but the government giving excuses like this, like such issues, is quite frightening to us.
Absolutely. I mean, this is exactly where the problem is, that you remove one problem and you put another problem.
Yeah.
So it's same in same strategy where I didn't explain or get into the details, but then basically in Mizoram, the Jhum cultivation still continues. Government still continues to issue land for Jhum cultivation. Now, there is a very nice connection. So basically, they don't want the Jhum cultivation to be stopped. They would use this as a strategy to show that this much land is gone into Jhum, and therefore the need to convert these lands into plantation. So if the strategy was that already degraded land which is existing in Mizoram can be used for for oil palm plantation, I could have understood, because it makes sense. But then when you give more rights for Jhum cultivation, and then you blame, saying that now we will convert it. Basically, the more Jhum land, the better, because then the more land can be converted into oil palm. So there is something that requires to be thought through, and then made up decisions around it by proper decision makers, I would say, appropriate decision makers. Yeah.
Yes. And this scheme being centrally sponsored and using our indigenous land, our native land, it will affect a lot, but these people are only concerned with the profit, I guess. And they are really not concerned about the people who are really dependent, whose livelihood is from the forest produce. So yeah, the whole scheme, I think is very, very problematic, and we should really address. We should really be giving awareness. We should not stop giving awareness, I guess. And not only giving awareness, but doing it practically, making it, successfully, giving governments the pressure to not, to see the negative impacts that it has on many, many fields, many sites, before it implements, before it begins its work.
It's a mix of all stakeholders, I would say. It's not just government, but it requires, from a very broader perspective, one has to also interact with the corporates who come there and who network bad. Oh, yeah, there. For example, the people who are already into the oil palm plantation now, they need to continue in some way. So how does that equity aspect is ensured? It's probably the corporate has to make sure that the people who are already there gets at least some benefit. Their security, livelihood security is maintained, so that they don't have to expand their oil palm more to get more money, rather than whatever they have they can benefit. And the fact that these companies require to have what is called RSP, or round table. What is it? Round table on sustainable palm oil. So it is something that one has to ensure that those corporates are actually implementing those guidelines. At least the fact that when such initiatives are being taken, one needs to ensure that the community which is actually using the land is something whether they would like to give away. So what is required is this free, prior, informed consent, which again it's a part of this entire important aspect for the indigenous communities, where certain decisions has to be decided by them and not by an outsider. And this is something, it's not just government, but empowering the community to decide and to allow them to provide that scope where they decide what is good for them is something we need to work on.
Letting people choose what they really want to do with their land. Yeah. And about the transportation part, Miss Kimi, who has already spoken about it, she has shared her, field reports about a person who have no transport system to transport the harvested palm, which is perishable, and it's like there was no profit at all. It was, they were like pressurized to cultivate the palm. Then again, they were pressurized to sell off before it get perished. So the government has not make a very clear, have not come up with a very clear scheme to how to take this harvested crop from the very deep forest areas which they are planning to start the plant cultivation. So again, here the farmers need to know this aspect as well, because
there is a twist in this again, and the twist is that when you have a few farmers in a very deep remote forest area and they would like to have a road, they would like to promote this to other farmers who are on that road to get into the oil palm, so that the road can be built faster, because then the company sees a profitability, which means that in order to have a road to access to those remote areas where the oil palm plantation is, you would cover more number of plantations in that area, because otherwise there is no benefit for a company to just go to collect from 3 families. So there are certain aspects into it. It's not just, one has to look beyond, one has to think through beyond that, okay, building a road is not enough, but to ensure that, those other lands which are still existing as a bamboo forest or as a rich biodiverse forest? How do you ensure that it's not getting lost?
Uh, so do we have any more questions that you would like to know from Miss Bose? Anyone? I think we had quite a very fun and interactive session with you, Miss.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I think no one is dropping the comments. Anyone? Okay. There's Elena Hisnam. I've been waiting to hear from you. Thank you, Purabi Bose.